This is Rabbi David Frohman, and welcome to Parshat Masei. This video continues last week, in which we focused on the strange, almost trivial saga of the family of Machir ben Menashe, Machir the child of Menashe, in their little-known conquest of the lands of Gilad through a man by the name of Yair. As we asked last week, this seemingly inconsequential story is the last piece in the narrative section of the Torah. It comes right before Moshe's speech in Sefer Devarim. Why is it that this seemingly inconsequential story wraps up essentially the entire narrative section of the Torah? To answer that, we need to take a closer look at Yair himself. Who was Yair? As we talked about last week, his lineage seems confused. He's described one way in the book of Numbers, another way in the book of Chronicles. I'd like to come back and offer a theory about who Yair was, a child of Yehuda, who perhaps in some way sublimates that identity and appears almost as an adopted child of Yosef. It all goes back to Gilad, this land that Yair was so instrumental in conquering. The name of that land, Gilad, seems to come from a covenant known as Galeed, sealed between Lavan and Yaakov, and we began to talk last week about the dark history of that covenant. Yaakov and Lavan had taken a pile of stones, and Lavan had said that this pile of stones will be a witness between you and I. God will look out from here long after you and I have left and will judge between us. And indeed it was so. Yaakov had absconded from Lavan's household, Lavan's idols, these trafim. They are in the possession of Rachel, and Lavan, aware that they have been taken and suspecting that someone in Yaakov's camp has them, goes through an exhaustive search and can't find them. He is deceived by Rachel, and at the end he seals this covenant, Galeed. But before he does, Yaakov had made a fateful promise that will come back to haunt him. Im asher timtzat Elohecha lo yichyeh, with whomever is found your gods, they will not live. And indeed, Rachel does not live. In the birth of Binyamin, she dies before her time, and the sages identify that death as being connected in some way with the terrible legacy of Galeed. I suggested last week that that legacy is not over with the death of Rachel, for indeed for Yaakov to really lose Rachel, he would not have to lose just her, but her children as well. We talked last week about the loss of Yosef and how, if you look at the story of the sale of Yosef, all of the language of that sale harks back to Galeed. But if you weren't convinced there, let me try and add a little bit of wood to that fire and convince you now. At Galeed, Yaakov, protesting Lavan's accusations against him, unaware again that Rachel has in fact taken the trafim, explodes in anger against his father-in-law once his father-in-law's search turns up empty. He says, "What did you find anyway as you went searching through all of my stuff? Ze esrim shana, these 20 years that I've been with you. I've been a faithful worker for you. What's ever gone wrong? Rechelecha v'zecha lo shikelu. The goats of yours that I watched over, none of them ever miscarried. Ele tzoncha lo achalti. There weren't any sudden disappearances from your flocks. I was an honest worker. I took care of everything. Treifa lo heveti elecha. I never came to you with a torn-up animal that I hadn't properly shielded from a predator. Anochi achatena miyadi tvakshena. If there was ever anything missing, I was the one who bore the loss of it. You always came after me. Gnuvti yomu, gnuvti laila. Didn't matter whether it was stolen by day or stolen by night, you'd always come after me, and I replaced it. Then we look back over this little speech that Yaakov's given. We play our little game, where else do we hear these words? You'll find no less than 4 references that take you to dark events later on in Yaakov's life. Rechelecha v'zecha lo shikelu, Yaakov says. Rechelecha, what an interesting word. Your Rachel, lo shikelu, never miscarried. Did Rachel ever miscarry? She did have a pregnancy where labor was exceedingly difficult, but she did not miscarry the child. There was a live birth, and instead it was Rachel herself who died in the birth of Binyamin. Had she only miscarried earlier in pregnancy, perhaps she would have lived. Treifa lo heveti elecha, Yaakov says. I never brought something torn up to you. Torn up? That's the exact word that Yaakov himself says when he's presented with the bloody coat. Tarof taraf Yosef. Yosef has been torn up. Anochi echatena miyadi tivakshena, Yaakov says. You'd always come and claim it from me. Who else said words almost exactly like that? Anochi e'ervenu miyadi tivakshenu. That was Yehuda speaking about Binyamin, another of Rachel's children. Yaakov had not wanted to allow Binyamin to go down to Egypt. He had already lost Joseph. He didn't want to lose the last of Rachel's kids. But then Yehuda says, no, you can always come and claim him for me. Yehuda is echoing the words of his father. Gnuvti Yom u'gnuvti Laila. Where else in Tanakh do we have a double ganav like that? It's Yosef himself, Yosef in prison. Gunov gunavti me'eretz ha'ivrim, Yosef had said in prison. I was stolen, kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews. Everything, Yaakov says to Lavan, comes back to haunt him in the stories that involve the loss of Rachel's children. And indeed, last week we focused on the loss of Yosef, but it's not just Yosef. Rachel has another child, Binyamin. Where was Binyamin going to be lost? Binyamin is lost later in the book of Genesis, when Yosef, the high Egyptian official, frames Binyamin by placing his silver goblet in his sack. The tribes leave the city. Yosef tells his henchmen, Kum redof acharei anashim v'hisagtem. Go, pursue those men, catch up to them. V'amarta aleim, go tell them, Lama shilamtem ra tachas tova. Why did you repay my kindness with such evil? Look at these words carefully. Pursue, catch up with. Where else did we have someone racing after someone else, catching up with them, and then making this self-righteous claim? How could you leave like this? This is Lavan! It's happening again! It's as if Yosef, who is taken by the long arm of Galeed, by the long arm of Lavan, is now assuming the persona in a way of Lavan himself, mimicking Lavan, and coming to take away the other child of Rachel, to deprive the family of Jacob of him too. And it's the same language as Lavan. Vayirdof acharav, the verse says. Same language of catching up. Vayaseg Lavan as Yaakov. It's all the same language. Once again, the victim was caught unawares. The victim in the Truffim story was Yaakov, and now the victim is Yehuda. He too does not know that there is someone in his camp with the stuff that's being sought after. And he too makes a statement that will come to haunt him. Asher yimatzei oto ma'avadecha v'meit. With whomever you find it, they will die. It's the same thing Yaakov had said. And then there's the search. Lavan had searched Yaakov's possessions, starting with the oldest, Leah, ending with the youngest, Rachel, one more time. V'yichapes begadol, hechelu bekatan kila. And then vayimatzei hagaviyah b'amtachat Binyamin. And then they found the goblet. This is the moment when everything could be lost, all of Rachel's children, when Lavan could have his final victory. But in the end, that final victory is prevented. Lavan does not prevail. Yosef and Binyamin remain ultimately part of the Jewish family, part of Jacob's household. Why? Because of Yehuda. Yehuda recalls that he has personally pledged that he will bring Binyamin home to Yaakov come what may, and he makes an impassioned speech to Yosef, where he lays out the truth. He tells him the whole story. He says, I took responsibility for this kid. Father already lost one of the children of his beloved wife Rachel. I can't allow him to lose two. Yehuda comes face to face with a terrible reality. Father loves Rachel, loves her more than even my own mother. There was a time when I was willing to sell a child of Yaakov's precious Rachel because I couldn't face that reality, but this will not be that time. Take me instead, and let Binyamin go home to his father. Yosef is overcome with emotion, reveals himself. And now both Yosef and Binyamin return to Yaakov's family. So as we close the book of Genesis, we see the beginning of Galaad's legacy, the attempt of Galaad, this covenant that Yaakov seals with Lavan to grab the children of Rachel. And Galaad is foiled, vanquished by none other than Yehuda. That same Yehuda who came up with the idea, let's sell him, is responsible for saving both Binyamin and Yosef and bringing them back into the fold. Yehuda is responsible for making sure there is such thing as a tribe of Joseph among the Jewish people. And now, at the close of Sefer BaMidbar, we hear about Galaad one last time. Indeed, Gilad, this land that gets its name through Galaad, is taken for the Jewish people by none other than a man called Yair ben Manasseh, a child of Manasseh. And yet, as we pointed out, in the book of Chronicles we learn that he was only related through his grandmother to Manasseh. His tribal affiliation is Judah. It's the final act of reconciliation. Centuries after Yehuda vanquished the ghosts of Galaad, a child of Yehuda captures Galaad one more time, captures Gilad on behalf of a child of Yosef. Yair, the child from Yehuda, ensures that Gilad will become part of not just Jewish territory, part of Yosef's territory. It will become part of the tribe of Manasseh. His grandmother is a daughter of Machir ben Manasseh. What a strange name, Machir. Sure sounds a lot like Mechira, doesn't it? It's the same letters as the sale, as if Manasseh named his child after the sale of Joseph. And now comes a child, Yair from Yehuda, who conquers these villages and could have claimed them for his own tribe, but does not. He becomes an adopted child of Manasseh's tribe and takes it for Yosef. The last action piece of the Jews' 40-year sojourn in the desert ends with brothers taking care of brothers. And with his selfless act, Yair helps to vanquish the ghosts of Galaad one last time. Hey, it's Rabbi Frohman. If you get a chance to leave a comment at the end of this video, I always love reading those. Hope you enjoy the video. Shabbat Shalom to you.